Hi everyone and welcome back to the channel. I hope you guys are having a wonderful Monday, November 10th. It was really cold this morning, but right now it's in the 60s, but it's the high today, I think is 63. Crap, he's bathing himself next to me over here. He's like shaking the whole bed. So it's sunny, there is a breeze, so it's good for laundry day, because yesterday it was way too cold. It was like, I don't remember if it like in the 50s was our high or something like that, but it was just not, I did not feel like dealing with laundry yesterday. So I went to Santa Fe with my husband to take his mom to her Jehovah's Witness meeting that she goes to. And he goes to the skate park to hang out with his friends, and I go to Barnes & Noble to do some journaling, and I am Bible reading and stuff like that. And I watch some videos sometimes. For now, I'm going to jump into Codependent No More. Now, how I started this whole thing is I started reading it on audiobook. In, I think it was the Libby app from the library. So I'm trying to see where in my journal I found one page, and I think I've only done one actual like journal page about it where it's like very specific. Oh, here's two. Actually, there's two of them. Okay, so it jumps from chapter 2. I think I did a few of them. I did up to chapter, which is part 2, chapter 4. So like it's in the different parts. So I did a bit in pieces from each one that had some of the questions. So now, the first time I read this was almost 24 years ago in Denver. I read it like a textbook. I read it just, I read it with the intention of, what if I need to help somebody? Because that was like always my goal in life. I need to help people. I guess I was trained that way. And that's probably a whole video that I've talked bits and pieces of different things, that how I was growing up, being the little adult and all that stuff. And I'm learning why. I'm learning some of that through this book and through therapy and through all things. And you know what I've noticed is something within me is changing. Just because I'm giving myself the time to learn, I'm giving myself the time to say, okay, you can slow down now. You can take some time for yourself. You can try to heal mentally, emotionally, physically, and even spiritually in some sense. What I struggle with spiritually is actually what I struggle with mentally and physically, because we're told in the Bible about anxiety. We're told in the Bible about, even depression, just worry, the whole thing that I struggle with. So there's that spiritual element to it. So what was funny, I just talked about this in therapy. Like I didn't know what being codependent was. See, even when I first read it, I just assumed, well, they talk a lot about, Al-Anon, AA, people who are dependent on a substance or just different things that they do, right? And I'm like, well, I don't deal with that. Like, I'm not dependent on anybody, on anything. And I wasn't dependent directly. So this is the thing that I just now like my ears itching, had a moment of realization. I'm not dependent on someone else to fulfill my needs. You know what I'm saying? Like, one of my struggles is being too independent and not allowing people to help me and not asking for help and not allowing my husband to be who God called him to be in our marriage. And, in just instead, because I'm like, oh, I'll do it myself. I'll do this. I just want to do everything on my own. And a lot of that made me believe, well, I'm not codependent, because codependent to me was, I'm not dependent on someone else to fulfill my needs or to do things for me or whatever. I could do it all myself. But the fact that I was doing things for other people, it was like I was their dependency on me and making them dependent on me, making sure, like, I'm going to fix this, I'm going to help you. Even though I went in with the best of intentions, it became all encompassing of who I was. So in a sense, I was dependent on them, I guess, needing me to feel like I had purpose. And because my ear's itching like crazy. So I didn't realize that. You see, I didn't understand that about myself. And so when I don't have somebody dependent on me, when I don't have to fix a problem, when I don't have to help somebody, I tend to feel like I have no purpose. And the thing is I guess I go from wanting to help and fix everything to I don't want anything to do with anybody. And because it's overwhelm, it's stress, it's overdoing everything and not letting myself, not filling my cup. I'm just giving from the empty. And when you do that, and you give from the last little tiny bits of what you got, you are irritable, you're angry, you're stressed out, overwhelmed, overworked, over everything's just like you're over it. It's like, ugh. So, some of the things that stood out to me, as I did, like I said, I read most of this on audio. I think I started reading the actual book in chapter 4, which is a codependent characteristic. Excuse me. Where you kind of jot down 0 if it's never a problem, 1 if it's sometimes a problem, and 2 if it's frequently a problem. So it kind of gives you an idea, are you codependent or not? So that's where I started actually writing, or like reading the book, highlighting, and all that stuff. So the first parts of the book are just basically stories of people who were in relationships with alcoholics or drug addicts. This ones were mostly like alcoholics, whether they were in recovery or not, and how they became crazy. Like, she talks about how Melody Beattie, the one that wrote it, she talks about her alcoholism, and how I think it was her that was talking about it. How did it say? 'Cause I'm thinking of the audiobook, because that's where I heard that part, but where she thought the codependents at the time, I don't know what, the other people in her life were the bad ones. Like, they were the crazy ones. Why are they acting so crazy? Why were they And later on, when, when she became sober and kind of started researching things, I guess, and kind of writing these books that she wrote and all that stuff, kind of realized, well, they're acting crazy because the situation that they put themselves in, or the situation that the alcoholic's putting them in. However, depending on how that started, whether that you knew who they were, you knew what they were, and you got in a relationship anyway with them, or this became a thing later on, right? So that's kind of where it started. But codependency, it doesn't have to do with alcoholism. It can do with a lot of other things. It can do with just wanting to fix everything for everyone, and talked about identifying with people in the chapter, like which relationships and all that stuff. And like one of the main things I guess I identified with, because I didn't really identify with the fact of being in a relationship with an alcoholic, although I was at one time. But I think that was also because I wanted to fix him. And I was like 20 years old, maybe. He was 11 years older than me. And I knew him for the most part. I knew who he was, grew up around him, knew that he was an alcoholic and everything, but I could help him. He was a nice guy, right? You can't help someone who doesn't want the help. And that's not my place anyway. I'm not a savior. There's only one, Yeshua, Jesus, and the rest of us are just here. We are here to help each other, but we can't fix everything, like, and I think that was my problem. So like, let's see, I identified with the fact of how they explained that these people leave themselves behind and give until they are empty to everyone else, being attracted to the idea of having someone to help, to fix, do things for. So if they are, as if they are a project. And then the guilt for not doing more and hoping someone maybe even expecting someone to give us like we give them. So even if you're not expecting the person directly that you're giving to all the time to give you that same, that same type of response, and, that same type of attention, or the same type of whatever you're doing for them in return, you're expecting that maybe somebody would, because you're doing it, so somebody should do it too. So, this can bring to mind, like, even relationships with family. There were situations where I felt kind of like a buffer, because of tensions between people in my family, adults in my family. This when I was younger. It's like, 10 teenagers, around that, all of that, even in my 20s. And it kind of just grew into that. But I was doing it from the perspective of, I want to be there. I want to help. I knew this person wanted to build a relationship with these other people. And I knew sort of the dynamic, what had happened, why, and all this stuff, but they wanted this relationship. They wanted to work. And I thought, well, I could be the little helper, the little fixer. I can be the little buffer in between. And then, like I talked about the relationship I had. And, it's like just always wanting to help. And that's not a bad thing. I tend to get completely consumed in it, and I forget all about myself. Like, if you ask me, who are you? What do you like? I like to read. I like to journal. But like, everything I wanted to do and with my life was because I wanted to help other people. But because it was based on what I was doing, I don't know that I would say it was based on trauma. I mean, there is that element as well, but it was just like, I felt like I had to have that responsibility to fix everything and manage emotions for everybody, so everybody would be good, it would be fine, and no one would be fighting, no one would be arguing, nobody would be hating on each other. And it's a lot. It's because you can't fix it. Like, I can't fix anything for anybody else, and neither can you. All we can do is fix ourselves, right? All we can do is change the things within ourselves that we have control over. We have no control over anybody else's emotions. It doesn't matter, like, unless we're like poking the bear on purpose, like just being a jerk and, like wanting to bully them. Like, that's different. That you can cause some things, but overall, like, when we set boundaries, when we say no, when we do whatever, right, their reaction isn't our responsibility. But I thought it was. I still think it is sometimes. I'm learning. I'm getting better at that. So when I went into chapter 2, that first chapter was other stories. This next chapter is codependency. Oh, wait. This isn't chapter 2 then. Chapter 3 is codependency. So it's asking here, how would you define codependency? Well, I never really knew before, right? Like, before I thought it meant that I was dependent upon someone to serve me, or I was dependent on some substance or something like that. Now that I kind of understand a little bit more about what it's about, this is what I wrote down. And this is from, I worked on this when I was at the cafe, as a matter of fact, October 29th. So it's been a little while. I've going slowly through this, because I like, for these kind of books, what I've been doing is I'm like doing a little bit in here, a little bit in the Artist Way, a little bit in my devotionals, and just kind of, not overwhelming myself, trying to go slow. So anyway, I defined it as being it would be a people pleaser, a caretaker, and one who wants to heal others, but instead tries too hard to control and manipulate situations to be good. So that's where I say about managing emotions. I grew up with this idea that if I'm good, if I'm quiet, if I make myself smaller, then everybody will be better. Everybody will be fine. I'm not adding to the chaos. So if I'm good and I don't get in trouble and I don't cause any drama, I don't do anything wrong, then I can manage their emotions, right? And I've done that with everybody in my life, just about. Maybe not every single person, but I do that. I noticed that, like, even in the beginning of my marriage, and throughout a lot of it, I do that. I'm like, well, I don't want to say anything. I don't want to say what I want. I don't want to say, which just frustrates people more, right? But like, I don't want to say no. I don't want to say I don't want to do that. I don't want to say I would rather have this than that, or say anything. I want other people to be happy all the time, and if I could just be good enough. And it's overwhelming, for one. It doesn't work. It just ruins you, and it ruins relationships, and it turns you into something that you're not. You're making yourself something that you shouldn't be. That's not your purpose. That's not who God called you to be. I'm learning. The next part was, do you know anybody who has significantly affected your life? Somebody whom you worry about and wish you could change who they are and write in paragraphs. I couldn't really specifically find, like, say this person. I couldn't say it was my husband, or it was this person, or it was that person. It wasn't anybody particular. For me, the list is just long. It's everyone in my life, because I learned at a very young age, because I'm the oldest child in my family. I'm the oldest grandchild on my mom's side, and very close to the oldest grandchild on my dad's side. It's kind of this oldest child responsibility. We're given a little more responsibility, right? And then we're told you need to be a good example for your siblings. You need to be, like, for me, it was like, you need to be a good example for your two sisters and your brother. You need to be a good example for all this host of cousins. And I didn't know how to be. I tried so hard to be good. I never got in trouble. I didn't go out and party. I didn't go out and have, like, it was twofold, like I've said, for a lot of things for me. I didn't party and go do a lot of crazy things because I wanted to be a good example, and I didn't want anyone to say, well, you did it, so I'm doing it, right? But then it was also because of my faith, and I didn't want to do those things. Maybe it's threefold, because the other part was, I thought if I go out and drink or do any drugs when I was younger, even now I still think the same way, but then I was like, I'm going to die. I was going to die. If I touched any drug, I was going to die. And we'll go into, like, some of, like, maybe more specifics on some of that thing in later videos. And then I guess you become the helper, right? So, like, my sister, the next in line, I was about 4. I was going to be 5 in a few months after she was born. So this is the baby, right? So it's almost like I was old enough to do a lot of things on my own. So I kind of thought, well, I'll just keep doing things on my own. They need to take care of her. And there was, like, that struggle, right? That you feel a little left behind. You feel a little like this little baby took over everything and took your parents away from you. But the way I think, what took over was, well, she needs it more than me. It's the same thing that I have an issue with when it comes to praying or doing things for myself. Like, when I go to God for certain things, it's like, well, he has more important people to worry about. I'll pray for other people, but not for myself. I'll take other things to him for other people, but not for myself, because I'm not that important. he has more pressure. I'll just work on it on my own. It's a problem. So for me, worry and stress, anxiety, depression, all of these became my partners because I didn't know what else to do. I didn't understand things. I just kind of went full force into these things and never gave it a second thought. Let's see. I did write a few things down, some things that I highlighted. So like one thing I wrote down was codependents appear to be dependent upon, but they are dependent. They look strong, but feel helpless. They appear controlling, but in reality are controlled themselves, sometimes by an illness such as alcoholism. So, it's this idea that I thought being strong meant you have no emotions, so like I wasn't controlled by alcoholism. It was like I was controlled by, well, maybe by the effects of some of that stuff in my family, right? I don't know. But I was controlled by my need to fix things, by my need to help people. I appear controlling because I'm just like, don't you just get it? I just want you to be good. I just want to be happy. I want to fix things for you. Plus, I think honestly, it's just the time frame that I was born into, that era of time, that Gen X, the way we were brought up, the differences in that compared to maybe like kids growing up now, right? There's an element there. One thing I did write down too, that another quote from in here was, the recovery from codependency is exciting. It is liberating. It lets us be who we are. It lets other people be who they are. It helps us own our God-given power to think, feel, and act. It feels good. It brings peace. It enables us to love ourselves and others. It allows us to receive love, some of the good stuff we've all been looking for. And then I kind of marked this in like a little box and just put, each person is responsible for him or herself. We need to realize that, right? As codependents, we need to realize, I am not responsible for you or anybody else. You are not responsible for me or anybody else. If you're a parent, yes, you're responsible for your kids. Like, I understand that part, but there's this thing that we're like, well, I'm taking on everything that they do. Well, it's not my responsibility. I can only give you encouragement. I can only give you advice. I can share all the wisdom I have from my experiences. You are responsible for taking that and doing what you will with it, right? And when it says here, like, it lets other people be who they are, well, lets you be who you are and lets other people be who they are. Sometimes I don't even know who I am. I've struggled with that, and I'm learning all these weird things about myself, these things that I'm like, I never even thought that was who I was. And it's like, it is liberating, it's freeing, it's wonderful. It's kind of scary though. So let's see, I'm gonna go ahead and we're about 30 minutes now, so let me just get through the next part that I did on this day. So it was chapter 4. And I'll just kind of highlight a few things here. This is where they have the serenity prayer at the beginning. God grant me the serenity to accept things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. That we need to know the difference. We need to know what is ours, what isn't ours. And in this one is where you mark all the things that are like with the 1, the 2, the 0, and go through them later on in another chapter. She's going to go over some of that stuff, I guess. So one of the questions is here, how do you feel about changing yourself? I wrote down, I want to change myself. I am currently on that journey to healing, and this is just another part of it. What do you think would happen if you began to change? I think it may cause issues with people who have been used to me swooping in to help immediately and leave my wants behind. I also believe it would make life so much better, peaceful, calm, and I would be able to enjoy the moment and not worry about the past or the future. Do you think you can change? Why or why not? And then it talks about writing. So I didn't write a whole bunch about it, but I wrote, yes, I do think I can change. I have made a few changes that before felt daunting and as if I would never be able to change. Seeing those changes, even though I am still struggling to accept those changes, make me realize I can make other changes. So those changes obviously are physical, are health related. Being able to lose 71 pounds. I never thought I'd be here. That's another thing that I would probably I'll talk a little bit more about that whole identity crisis in that respect. I know I talked about that in one of my videos. I think it was like the Gen X one, the midlife crisis one. I think I talked a little bit about that maybe, but I talked about that in therapy today, and it brought up a little bit more of why am I struggling so much to accept these changes and to see them and all of that. And so each time I make a change, because she asked me this question, and I'm going to leave it here. You've gone through phases in your life before. Why is this one so much different? Why are you struggling to see yourself different now? Why are you struggling to see that you are 71 pounds lighter, that you are wearing smaller clothes, and that's okay, and you don't have to hang on to these 2X clothes anymore, or whatever, this 1X, but I still hang on. And I still go straight for those, like I've talked about. So why? What is that? And since we've gone through phases, what is making this one so hard? So I'm going to leave that there, something to think about if you're struggling with that too. And I will talk more about that too, because there's a lot to unpack. And I think I want this to be something I can share with you guys, and hopefully it'll bless someone, because even if you're not struggling with the exact same thing I am, maybe you're not struggling with codependency, but you're struggling in some area, that this might help you. So this is a wonderful book. She has quite a few. As a matter of fact, I think I have one called Stop Being Mean to Yourself or something. I bought it at the thrift store like maybe 3-4 years ago. Not once have I opened it, because I don't know how to stop being mean to myself. Although today I did have a bit of an epiphany, which I'll talk about in the next video. But for now, I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. I am going to go check laundry, and I will see you in the next video. God bless you. Bye.